Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Bible Your Biography Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Lynna, and in this episode, we are moving into one of the most powerful, symbolic, and often misunderstood elements of Scripture, and that is the Seraphim, translated as the burning ones. Now, when most people hear the word seraphim, their mind immediately goes to angels, external beings, celestial creatures existing somewhere outside of themselves. They imagine something distant, mystical, and separate from their everyday experience. But as we continue to unfold Scripture through the lens of consciousness and psychological interpretation, what begins to emerge is something entirely different. The Bible is not a story about beings outside of you. It is a revelation of what is happening within you. And the seraphim are not excluded from this. They are not external messengers. They are internal processes. They are the fire of transformation that takes place when you begin to awaken from one state of consciousness into another. They represent what happens when identity begins to shift, when assumptions begin to dissolve, and what you once believed to be fixed begins to feel unstable. And if you have been on a spiritual journey, especially one aligned with Neville Goddard's teachings, you have experienced this fire. You have felt the discomfort of outgrowing an identity, the confusion of no longer resonating with your old patterns, the intensity of emotional release, and the pressure of becoming something new. And often these moments are misunderstood. They are labeled as setbacks, as breakdowns, as something going wrong. Well, what if none of that is true? What if what you are experiencing is actually the work of the seraphim within you? What if the discomfort is not destruction, but refinement? In the book of Isaiah, we are given a vision where the prophet sees the Lord seated on a throne, and above this throne stand the seraphim, each with 6 wings, crying out, "Holy, holy, holy." And then something very precise happens. One of the seraphim takes a burning coal and touches Isaiah's lips, declaring, "Your iniquity is taken away." Now, this is not random. This is not poetic exaggeration. This is a blueprint of transformation. So in this episode, we're going to break this down in depth. We're going to explore the Hebrew meaning of seraphim, what burning ones actually means, where they appear in Scripture, and how to interpret that psychologically. The significance of the number 7 as completion and fulfillment, and most importantly, how the 7 seraphim represent 7 stages or states of consciousness in the awakening process. Because once you begin to understand this, you will stop resisting the fire and you will begin to recognize it for what it truly is, the process of becoming. So let's begin with the actual scriptural reference. The seraphim are most clearly described in Isaiah chapter 6. And this is where the symbolic structure is revealed. Isaiah says, "I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up." Now, if we approach this literally, we imagine a physical throne, a being seated somewhere in the sky. But from a psychological and Neville-aligned perspective, the Lord represents your I am, your awareness of being. The throne represent authority. So what Isaiah is describing is not an external vision, but an internal realization. Awareness recognizing itself as the source. Then he says, above it stood the seraphim. This is important. They are above the throne. Symbolically, this means they operate at a level that refines and surrounds awareness itself. They are not below. They are not separate. They are intimately connected to the process of awareness becoming purified. Then we are told, each had 6 wings. Now this imagery is highly symbolic. The 6 wings represent function, not form. 2 wings cover the face. 2 wings cover the feet. 2 wings are used for flight. Covering the face represents a limitation of perception. The idea that the finite self cannot fully perceive infinite awareness. Covering the feet represents humility and grounding, the stripping away of pride and false identity. And flying represents movement between states of consciousness. Then the seraphim cry out, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts." This repetition is not accidental. In Hebrew thought, repetition intensifies meaning. Threefold repetition represents complete recognition. This is the acknowledgement that consciousness, the I am, is the only reality. Then something happens. The foundations of the thresholds shook, and the house was filled with smoke. This is one of the most important parts of the passage, because this represents a destabilization of identity. When awakening begins, everything that once felt stable begins to shift. Beliefs begin to dissolve. Certainties begin to collapse. You may feel disoriented, uncertain, even lost. But this is not a mistake. This is part of the process. Then Isaiah says, "Woe is me, for I am undone." This is the moment of identity collapse. This is where the old self can no longer sustain itself. And then comes the turning point. One of the seraphim takes a burning coal from the altar and touches Isaiah's lips and declares, "Your iniquity is taken away." Now, why the lips? Because the lips represent speech, inner dialogue, assumption. In Neville Goddard's teachings, inner speech is everything. Your inner conversations shape your reality. So what is being purified here? Not behavior, not external action, but identity expressed through speech, through inner speech. The burning coal represents a concentrated moment of transformation, and the result is clear. The false identity is removed. This is the role of the seraphim. They burn away what is not true. Now let's go deeper into the Hebrew meaning of the word seraphim. So the root is, and I don't speak Hebrew, but I believe it's pronounced seraph. It's S-A-R-A-P-H, meaning to burn, to consume, to destroy through fire, and to refine. But this is where we need to shift our understanding of fire, because in modern thinking, fire is associated with destruction. But in Hebrew thought, fire is associated with purification. In ancient times, fire was used to refine metals. Gold, for example, is placed into fire not to destroy it, but to remove impurities. The heat causes everything that is not gold to rise to the surface, and what remains is pure. This is exactly what happens in awakening. The fire you experience is not there to harm you, it is there to reveal what is not aligned, what is not true, what is not you. So when you experience emotional intensity, loss of identity, detachment from old patterns, and a sense of uncertainty, you are not breaking, you are being refined. This is why the Seraphim are called the burning ones. They represent the process that removes illusion. And this process is not always comfortable, because what is being burned away is often what you have identified with: your beliefs, your roles, your assumptions about yourself. So it can feel like loss, but in reality, it is clarification. It is the removal of everything that is not aligned with your true identity. And this is why awakening is often described as both beautiful and intense, because it is both. It is illumination, but it is also fire. So now let's move into the number 7, which is essential to understanding the full framework of the 7 seraphim. In Hebrew, the number 7 comes from the root, I believe it's pronounced shava, meaning to be full, to be complete, to be satisfied, to fulfill. 7 represents completion of a process. We see this pattern throughout Scripture. 7 days of creation, 7 lamps, 7 spirits, 7 seals. Each instance represents a cycle brought to completion. But there is another layer. The word Shava is also connected to the idea of an oath or covenant, something that has been fully established and cannot be undone. So when we speak of the 7 seraphim, the 7 burning ones, we're not talking about 7 individual beings. We are talking about the complete cycle of inner purification. From the first spark of awareness to the full embodiment of a new identity. This is the journey of awakening. And it's not random. It follows a pattern, a progression, a refinement process that leads to fulfillment. So the number 7 tells you this process has a structure, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the end is not destruction. The end is completion. And the end is really the beginning. So now let's look at the 7 seraphim as 7 states of consciousness. Each state represents a phase of the burning, a layer of identity being refined. And this is the beginning, the moment where something shifts. You begin to question what you once accepted as reality. You may not fully understand what is happening, but there is a sense that something is changing. This can be triggered by a life event, exposure to new ideas, or even a moment of clarity. This state is often subtle but powerful. You may begin to feel restlessness, curiosity, or the awareness of limitation. And this is the first spark. Then there is the inner burning. Now the fire intensifies. You can no longer return to your previous state of consciousness. What once felt normal now feels misaligned. You begin to feel emotional intensity, inner pressure, a desire for change. And this is where resistance often shows up, because the fire is no longer comfortable. But this stage is necessary. It's breaking attachment to the old identity. And let me go back for a second, because there are Hebrew names for each of the seraphim. For instance, Seraphim, the first, is the awakening flame, seraph, to burn. Seraphim, the second seraphim, the inner burning. And the Hebrew word is B-A apostrophe A-R, Ba'ar, I don't know how to pronounce it, meaning to consume. And then there's the third, which is purification, Teer, to her. It's the Hebrew word is pronounced, or it's spelled T-A-H-E-R, meaning to cleanse. Now, if any of you speak Hebrew and you're listening to this, I really apologize for butchering any of the words. So now with the third seraphim, this purification, this cleansing, now everything comes to the surface. Old beliefs, old patterns, old emotional wounds. And this is often the most intense stage, because you're confronted with everything that has been hidden. But this, again, is not punishment. It's just a cleansing. So this state may include emotional release, letting go, and deep introspection. Everything that is not aligned is being revealed so it can be released. And then we have the fourth seraphim. And again, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this Hebrew word, but it is spelled T-S-A-R-A-F, meaning to refine. Now the process becomes more precise, even more precise. You are no longer just releasing, you are being shaped, tested, refined. And this is where your new identity is challenged. You're required to remain aligned under pressure. And this is where stability begins to form. Then we have these seven Seraphim 5, which is illumination, or meaning light. So the Hebrew word is or, O-R, meaning light. So now clarity emerges. You begin to see reality differently. You understand that consciousness is the source, and there's a shift in perception. You begin to recognize patterns. You begin to see how your assumptions shape your experience. So this state includes insight, awareness, and expanded perception. And then we have the sixth seraphim, which is embodiment. The Hebrew word, I believe it's pronounced yashar, which is alignment. So now you are no longer trying to change, you are the change. The new identity becomes natural, and there's less effort, less resistance. You think, feel, and respond from this new state automatically. This is embodiment. And then we have the seventh seraphim, which is completion, shava, fulfillment. Now the process is complete. There's no striving, no seeking, no forcing. The new identity is stable. You're no longer becoming, you are. And this is fulfillment. So now let's return to the burning coal, because this is one of the most important symbolic elements. The coal is taken from the altar, and the altar represents the place of transformation. And it is applied to the lips. Why? Because transformation happens through speech, inner speech, your assumptions, your inner conversations, your identity expressed internally. And our outer words are also very powerful. What we speak into our reality. And again, your identity. right, is expressed internally and also outwardly. So be mindful of what you speak, both internally and outwardly. So this inner speech aligns directly with Neville Goddard's teachings. Change your inner speech and you change your reality. So the coal represents a moment where speech is purified, where the old narrative is burning away, and a new identity is established. So the seven seraphim are not external beings watching over you. They are the process of awakening within you. They are the fire that burns away illusion, refines identity, reveals truth. So if you are in a season where things feel like they are shifting, where parts of your life no longer fit, where your identity feels like it is changing, you're not lost. You are in the fire. You're being refined. And the fire is not here to destroy you, it is here to reveal you, your true nature, as consciousness itself. If this episode resonated with you in any way, please feel free to follow the podcast or subscribe to the channel on YouTube. And follow the podcast, share it with someone on their awakening journey. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye now.